What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today I've got another new video for you guys. I'm going to be doing my top 5 wide receivers to buy for the rest of the fantasy football season in 2020 and give you a list of guys that you should be targeting to give you high upside during the fantasy playoffs. Before I get into today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Turn that bell on, and let's not waste any time. Let's get into the rankings and hit the intro. Alright, my first wide receiver on the list of guys you need to go out and target for the remainder of the 2020 season is Michael Thomas, the Saints star receiver, who has really not seen the field at all so far this season. In just 2 games played this year, Michael Thomas only has 8 total receptions for 68 total yards in 2 games, both of them being against Tampa Bay. And I think in trade talks here, you guys really need to play the injury card and the loss of value that Michael Thomas has seen since draft day. While I truly believe that Michael Thomas has top 3 wide receiver value the rest of the fantasy season, you guys need to play the card that Michael Thomas is no longer what he once was a season ago in that record-breaking performance where he put up more receptions in NFL history than any other player. I truly believe there's a market out there to buy low for Michael Thomas the rest of this season, and I think that if you play your cards right, this is a guy you can get for a very reasonable price and have a major upgrade at one of your major starting positions on your fantasy teams. My favorite thing about Michael Thomas going forward is not only the talent that he brings to the table and that expected high number of passing targets he gets per game. Obviously, he is a PPR monster and needs to be sought after in all of those leagues, but his schedule the rest of this year is extremely favorable. Michael Thomas, in his next 7 games here that are fantasy relevant matchups, has 5, in my eyes, very favorable games to go up against. In week 10 here, Michael Thomas will be taking on the battered 49ers secondary. That defense is in tatters, and about the only thing they still do well is stop the run. Those guys couldn't stop Devontae Adams in week 9. They're not going to be able to stop MT in week 10. He's a guy you need to go after. Week 11, he's got Atlanta, one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. They're starting to trend upwards, but still a unit that Michael Thomas can feast on. Week 12, he's traveling to Denver. Those guys have been really good against the run, but struggled against the pass. They've been very susceptible to big plays, and I think with Michael Thomas's consistency, he has a very nice game there. Week 13, back to Atlanta, another great matchup, and then Week 16 in the Fantasy Championship, he has Minnesota's terrible secondary. Those guys are young, they're inexperienced, and they get burnt deep a lot. Michael Thomas also can probably torch them on his famous slant routes. There's some really great opportunity here for Michael Thomas moving forward. His elite talent and that great schedule make him a top 3 wide receiver play for me the rest of the year. He needs to be targeted in all of your guys' leagues. My number 2 wide receiver to buy low here for the rest of the 2020 season is the Vikings rookie standout Justin Jefferson out of LSU. The ridiculous hype that was there for Justin Jefferson the first few weeks of the fantasy season has died down, and so has his value in the trading market, but this is a guy who needs to be targeted the rest of the way, and here's why. We've seen in games when the Vikings get into shootouts, Justin Jefferson has a crazy high ceiling and is a guy that can put up really, really high numbers for your teams. Jefferson is simply suffering right now from Minnesota's game plan and the fact that they are a run-first football team. This team wants to ground and pound and maintain possession of the football and not score in a flash, which is what Justin Jefferson is really good at. The good news for Justin Jefferson owners, though, or teams looking to go target him, is that the Minnesota Vikings can't do this forever. This is simply a product of their matchups the last couple weeks. Green Bay and Detroit, the last 2 games on the schedule for Minnesota, have been easily exploited run defenses all year, and Dalvin Cook had an absolute field day against those teams. If the Vikings can, they want to give that ball to him 30-plus times and let him just carry the load for their offense and just wind that clock down so they can keep their defense off the field. In those 2 games, that is exactly what they were able to do. Dalvin Cook absolutely ran them off the field, and they were able to play the game they wanted to play. But Minnesota can't do this forever. They're not going to get great matchups against the run game the rest of the season, and when that happens, Justin Jefferson is going to thrive. Like I said, Minnesota's defense is bad, and when they get points hung up on them in a hurry and they're not able to turn around and run the football 30 times, they're going to have to throw the football, and Kirk Cousins is going to have to air it out to Justin Jefferson. Some notable teams on the schedule for the Vikings the rest of the way who have very stout defenses against the run are Week 14, Tampa Bay has been absolute shutdown against the run all season long. Kirk will have to throw in this game, and Justin Jefferson will produce nicely. Week 15 versus Chicago, another great defense in the interior. Akeem Hicks plugs up those run lanes, and forces teams to throw the ball against their stud corners. And then week 16, arguably the best matchup of them all, he has the New Orleans Saints, who are absolute run stuffers. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher in a long time, and their secondary has struggled mightily over the top in pass coverage. That's a game that will be played in a dome, so it'll be nice weather, a controlled climate, and a very nice matchup for wide receivers and quarterbacks. If you guys were paying attention to the week numbers there, you will have realized that that is actually his schedule during the fantasy playoffs. Justin Jefferson has everything going for him during that stretch of time and is a guy that should be traded for in all leagues. This guy can put up league-winning numbers during that stretch and have a massive impact on your team's performance. I think Justin Jefferson is a must-target receiver and a wide receiver 1 during the last 3 games of this year. My number 3 wide receiver to buy for here the rest of the season is the Seattle Seahawks wideout Tyler Lockett, who has really been having some quiet games recently. 4 of his last 5 contests, Tyler Lockett has 6 or fewer fantasy points in half PPR scoring, which is clearly not getting the job done, yet he is still the wide receiver 4 in that scoring. Lockett started off the season white hot. He had a 32.5-point game in half PPR scoring, and then obviously everyone knows about that 15-catch, 200-yard performance with 3 touchdowns that he had against the Cardinals 3 weeks ago. And so Tyler Lockett's numbers are very inflated from those performances. In my eyes, there is one factor that's contributing to Tyler Lockett's lack of production in the rest of those games, and it's very simple. All it is it comes down to the emergence of DK Metcalf. Metcalf simply has been a freak this year. He has been unguardable, and he has just put up ridiculous fantasy numbers. You guys know he's the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football right now, and he is just torching DBs left and right. He can't be stopped. And so the targets that he's getting are ultimately bringing down what Tyler Lockett is seeing on the field. But the rest of the season, I see things evening out a little bit more. DK Metcalf, really quickly here, we're going to see having obvious double cover matchups on every play. He's going to have safety help over the top, and other teams are going to do whatever they can to slow him down. This is going to open up many favorable avenues for Tyler Lockett to get one-on-one man coverage that he will thrive in and produce very nice numbers for your lineups the rest of this year. Over the last couple weeks here, we've seen Russell Wilson's turnover count rise, and I think that can be attributed partially to the fact that he's forcing the ball to DK Metcalf. I think at times when he forces that ball into tight windows, it's getting picked off. He's got pressure in his face. His line is not blocking well, and I think that he's going to start going back to Tyler Lockett more and more because of the lighter coverage he's going to see. Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson combo has been lethal the last couple of years, and those guys have a real chemistry together. They are highly efficient and productive players. And Tyler Lockett, despite his small stature, gets a healthy amount of red zone looks as well. So he's definitely a guy who can score touchdowns as well as have some really nice yardage outings. Lockett the rest of the season has a massive ceiling and I think a pretty safe floor despite the numbers he has been putting up in the last 4 or 5 games. But Tyler Lockett, I think that the situation is just too good to pass on. There's a lot of great things here, especially Russell Wilson throwing him the football and his elite talent. He has developed really, really well throughout his career. So Tyler Lockett, a top 3 guy to go target for me. Go pick him up in your leagues. My number 4 wide receiver to go target here for the rest of the season is Chris Godwin. And right now, Chris Godwin is struggling through lots of different things in his fantasy season. Mainly is the fact that he is wide receiver 60 right now in half PPR scoring. And that's simply due to missed games and an absolute dud that Tampa Bay laid on the field last Sunday. Chris Godwin's missed 4 games this season so far. Most of those were attributed to a hamstring injury, and the other was hand surgery that he had on a broken finger that he suffered a couple weeks ago. But Chris Godwin is starting to recover. He's starting to get healthy again, and I think that he's a guy who, looking forward, might not have quite the ceiling he had last year with Jameis Winston and have quite the crazy production that we were seeing him put up last year. But I think he is a guy who could put up comparable numbers the rest of the way and be a highly effective player in your lineups. When I think about a guy over the course of Tom Brady's career that he likes to throw the football to and a guy that he can depend on play in and play out, Chris Godwin fits that mold and is the perfect guy that comes to mind. Chris Godwin is that dependable guy in the offense for Tampa Bay. He plays almost every snap of the game when he's healthy, and he plays those underneath routes, those crossers, those check down routes that Tom Brady loves to go to, and that gives him an incredible floor and a very safe play the rest of the season for fantasy. I see Godwin's floor being around 8 targets per game the rest of the season here. Tom Brady needs someone dependable in these short routes closer to the line of scrimmage that he can have as a safety valve because that offensive line has been getting beat badly the last few weeks here. Tristan Wirfs, the rookie right tackle, has been letting guys into TB12's lap on a frequent basis the last couple weeks, and he's starting to get really fed up with that. So I think Tom Brady is going to start getting the ball out of his hands quicker and looking less those deeper routes, and I think that benefits Chris Godwin. And for a guy with his talent and his run after the catch ability, he is a guy who can make explosive plays happen and have not only a safe floor, but a tremendously high ceiling as well. Going back to all those games Godwin has missed, that wide receiver 60 ranking gives him some really nice ability to be bought low for on the market. I think his price, similar to a Michael Thomas, due to all those games missed and that low ranking this season, is going to allow you guys to go get him for a good price. I think Chris Godwin can be bought for a guy like a wide receiver 2 or a low-end RB2. I don't think many people see Chris Godwin in the same light that they saw him in last season anymore. And I think that he is a guy who can still put up comparable numbers to that. So another thing I like about Chris Godwin here is his matchups the rest of the season. He has some extremely favorable matchups, especially in the fantasy playoffs. He has a 3-week stretch there where he can put up monster fantasy numbers and just take over your teams for you. Week 14, he's got Minnesota. We know that defense is bad and that secondary can't cover open grass. Week 15, he's got Atlanta. That defense has struggled all year. Their secondary is banged up and in tatters. He's going to thrive in that game. Week 16, in the fantasy championship, he has another great matchup against Detroit, and the Lions have really struggled to guard wide receivers out of the slot. And that's where Chris Godwin lines up primarily on the majority of his snaps. I think he is in for a massive outing those 3 weeks in a row and has a very safe floor moving forward. My last wide receiver that you guys need to go out and buy for a must-own player down the stretch of this season is Allen Robinson, the Chicago Bears' #1 wideout, who is currently the wide receiver 8 for 2020 half PPR rankings. And considering the lack of scoring that he's produced this season, and that terrible Bears offense is very, very impressive. On only 3 touchdowns this year, Allen Robinson in PPR formats, like I said, the wide receiver 8, which means he's an extremely dependable target, and he is being fed the football. This guy does not have weeks where he ruins your lineups. He produces week in and week out. Like I said, Robinson has an extremely safe floor this season, and for that reason, you guys need to be going out and getting him because he provides that consistency for your lineups that you guys are looking for and can really depend on here down the stretch of the year. He puts up really nice numbers on a week-to-week basis, and the amount of targets he gets ensures that he never has a bust performance. He is that lone bright spot for the Chicago Bears offense, and he appears to be matchup proof. He's produced against very tough matchups like the Rams, against Jalen Ramsey's shadow coverage. He still had a decent and starting level performance there. And then against Tampa Bay, he had 10 catches for 90 yards. That's been a team that has had a very stout secondary, a very good pass rush, and has gotten after it and really hurt the wide receiver value in fantasy this season. Robinson also has another really nice schedule the rest of the season. Week 10 here, he's got the Vikings. That's a great matchup for Robinson. Week 13, he has Detroit, another great matchup. Week 14, at Houston, they've struggled to defend the pass all year long. And then week 15, again, at Minnesota for the second time this season. He is going to eat them up during your semifinal playoff game in fantasy. And then week 16, the championship game, he has an awesome matchup against a very young Jags defense and a very under-talented roster. So Allen Robinson, you guys need to go out and get him. This is a mid to top level wide receiver 1 on a consistency basis from week to week. This guy can put up really nice numbers for your team and is going to be extremely safe and have a great floor for you guys. So you need to go out and get him. He's going to be dependable. You can lay it on the line for Allen Robinson this season, and he will help you guys secure that championship because he's not going to ruin your week. Those were my top 5 wide receivers to buy for the rest of the 2020 fantasy season. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate all of your guys' support and can't wait to see this channel continue to grow over the coming weeks and months here. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to put those down in the comment section below, and I'll get back to all you guys. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.